Listen, we had an entire franchise of a guy who truly bonded with a girl, a Lifetime series about a legit psychopath that's getting a second season, a real life story turned into a podcast, turned into a TV series, it got more hype along the way, of a dude who's also Bundy-like and tried screwing over this family. We got several Manson movies coming out just this year, Oscar-winning Octavia Spencer even dipping her toes into the mix. There are so many movies and TV shows about psychopaths out there that it's become a legit thriving genre. There are podcasts talking about real life murders, documentaries, all hosted by Blue Apron every weekend. Violence pretty much is selling more than sex right now. And there's one thing out there that's combining the two with this movie called Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, which I personally feel is doing something different than a lot of people have accused it of being. Let me explain. So I had caught this one back in January during Sundance, and there was a huge uproar happening online because the trailer had just dropped, and I'll agree that the editing for the trailer was a little bit off. It wasn't the best representation, but nothing's funnier than people reviewing movies they haven't seen. A lot of people said the movie should be more like the Netflix documentary series, not realizing it's from the same people who made the Netflix documentary series. I heard others say that these violent acts shouldn't even be portrayed on the screen, not realizing they weren't going to be portrayed on the screen. But I think the biggest one is what truly affects how you see the movie. It's the literal perception of the film, and that was people complaining that it wasn't respecting the victim's viewpoint, not realizing it's based off of the victim's viewpoint. It's her story. She is getting compensated for it. She was on the literal set giving advice. So I don't know who these people are. That said, I'm not defending the whole movie, just the obvious, because to me it's still a little rented for the fact that the movie doesn't stay consistent, or at least gets the biggest punch that I feel it could have gotten. The whole perspective of the movie is supposed to be from Liz's viewpoint, that's why it comes off as a romantic thriller. It's literally taking from pieces of her novel, with the message being, according to the director, that it's supposed to be a warning for people. Obviously you can tell people to be careful about things, but I've always felt that movies are the best way to portray that on screen, and that's what the director thought when he noticed that his daughters had no idea who Bundy was, and considering that his daughters are living in an age where they can get catfished from home, he went to work. So that idea of casting a heartthrob that's beloved by a certain demographic, a guy who people follow like he's the second coming of Christ, he's still Troy Bolton to them, to cast that person who they automatically have trust in, and then flip that on its head, is the exact message you want to get out there when it comes to Ted Bundy, who did just that. It's kind of like the Matt Damon technique that we've been seeing in a lot of movies, where they have him appear like super late in the film, and you had no idea he was in there. It was almost like a cameo. And the reason for that is because seeing Matt Damon has a certain impact, a familiarity that a random extra or smaller actor wouldn't be able to get across. So for Zac Efron to take a role like this, give his best performance, in my opinion, if that means anything, but also supposedly taking a 99% pay cut, they either promised Troy an Oscar, or he's got his head in the game. The director himself has also come out talking about the responsibility he feels he should have when making these crime dramas, which I don't know how many of y'all remember Pain and Gain, where Michael Bay did the complete opposite, where he directed the deaths of real people as if it was an SNL skit. Like, it was supposed to be funny. Like, the family of those victims are still very much alive from this tragedy that these two buffoons did, but for 2 weeks, every theater in America was laughing at their loved ones' deaths.
Newsweek calls Pain and Gain outrageously entertaining.
So if we're talking about a guy who's trying to do the complete opposite, this is a dude who walks it like he talks it. He has a series called Paradise Lost that actually helped free 3 innocent people from prison. So again, you can definitely judge the movie and critique it. It could be completely bland. It's a rent it for me. But every time I see people assuming the filmmakers and crew's intentions, I'm like, what do you mean? So knowing that it's from her perspective, it does make things a little scary, They don't really show Ted brutally killing anyone, which people for some reason complained about, and they would have complained about it if he did kill someone, so it's a damn if you do, damn if you don't. But the purpose for that is that it keeps Liz's character on edge. She has no idea. It's a wild ride where at one point she even blames herself because she tipped off the police about him, and at one point I was sitting there with the audience and all of us were kind of thinking, Is Ted innocent? Again, I 100% get why people don't want to get into that mind state, even though, that's the mind state that everyone was in during the trial, especially for Liz. But I mean, look at those eyes, He is the greatest showman. If anyone could pull off the Ted Bundy on screen, it would have been someone like Zac Efron. This guy is so smooth with his excuses, even when they don't make any sense.
Oh, what the was that for?
How many stop signs did you run?
I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to freak out.
Oh, because eating in the papers would have been a better route, Ted, right? In fact, there were people fighting for Ted.
Hi, stranger.
Oh my God. Hi. Wow. What are you doing here? Do you live in Utah now? We just got engaged, so.
And he's smooth enough to get out of every scenario. The craziest part about it is that Ted does nice things. And I think that's what's been the hardest part for people to embrace. Because it's easy when the villains are fictional, right? You can create sympathy for those easily, and it fleshes them out. It adds layers, if you will, for Joker and Thanos. But when the person is real, when they've hurt real people, it's way harder for people to get into that mind state. Crucial though, I believe, because you don't want characters that are one-sided, and you don't want something that's going to strip away the scariest parts. Because realizing that they're human, realizing that they did all of these atrocities and they still took care of a little girl, had a long-term girlfriend, paid taxes, people owed him favors, that's where you realize that while some people want things to be black and white, opening up your eyes and seeing that it's someone who's in your own neighborhood who can hurt you, that should be getting your guard up. Including this man who went to court dressed better than a groom on his wedding day.
I literally just autographed my own wanted poster. I'm more popular than Disney World.
Ted even had a girlfriend while he was inside, and those are the moments where we shift to his perspective, which at first I was like, that's taken away from Liz's idea, her viewpoint, but you quickly realize that it's because they're playing with perception. Carol's big push was to counter all the negativity and to create a narrative through the reporters, and she did it. Why this case was televised, still to this day is beyond me, but it's hilarious when people question why today in 2019 there's such a big craving for crime serials when they televise this in place of other shows. In other words, they practically pitch this as entertainment for people to follow along with. Point being, if it was that easy to manipulate perception back in the 80s that some people were defending Bundy, people defended OJ, can you imagine what's going on during this digital age? During the age of outrage?
Because it makes it about getting ratings, not about getting the truth.
Again, I know there's going to be way more incarnations of the story and in forms of different media. This one may only be a rent it for me, but if it reminds people not to be bozos and to keep their guards up, so be it. It's an insane story of a guy who had mad conjugals, created his own courtroom drama, proposed in that same courtroom, and considering all the nasty things that he did and the big persona that he became, obviously there's going to be people who feel strongly about it. But if I may, let me explain the difference between a movie like Extremely Wicked and what's possibly the worst movie I've seen this year.
I guess you could say I live in a fairy tale world, looking at everything through rose-colored glasses.
See, it's easy to go with the flow when people are complaining. Again, some people want to fit in so bad, they talk about a movie they haven't even seen. But as someone who's seen 260 movies this year, whenever I hear people say that a big blockbuster or, like a really big movie is the worst thing they've ever seen, I usually recommend them to watch more than 10 movies, because it's rare for me to really hate a movie. Like, I'm disappointed all the time, but being mad at a movie, like, I say things are goofy or they may not be the best, but it's very rare that I want to collect all of the Infinity Stones to go back in time to make sure that a movie was never directed. I rarely take my hyperboles to 11, but this movie called The Haunting of Sharon Tate is by far the worst movie I've seen in 2019. I didn't even want to give it its own thing. I don't want to put all that negativity out there, but you guys know it's rare for me to give something a coaster rating, where it's so bad, the only thing you should be doing with that DVD is using it as a coaster. I see a lot of bad movies, but this is an abomination. For those who don't know, as this horror thriller genre based off real events keeps growing, you start getting people who are turning real victim stories into fantasies, or in this case, hauntings. If you're not aware, Sharon Tate was a famous actress who was married to director Roman Polanski, a bunch of issues there, but she was 8.5 months pregnant when Charles Manson and his cult broke into their house and killed Tate, her unborn child, and her friends. And this dude made a movie about, well, what if Sharon had visions like That's So Raven about the murders? Boy, what? Now, yeah, there is another movie coming out this year also about the Manson murders that's directed by Quentin Tarantino, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to hate that one. But that one at least got the blessing of the family. And if I may give my little theory here, I think he's going to go all Inglourious Bastards and kind of switch history. It's going to be one where Tate maybe survives and they do take down Manson. But not only does this guy for this movie pitch it as an empowering alternate version, which does a kid during those events even know what happened? I don't know. But if we're contrasting what Extremely Wicked did, all this guy did with the Visions gimmick he wanted to do was repeatedly, brutally show Sharon and her friends getting murdered over and over again more than once. I don't know what the goal was there. Even at the end, it's some weird fantasy where they do kill the murderers, but then the sun comes up and they're standing over their own dead bodies. It's the most selfish film I've ever seen. Now, the only reason I'm speaking about intentions here is because he literally wrote a letter to Sharon Tate's sister after the entire estate practically told him, don't make this movie. This man had the audacity to tell the family of the victim that her story was also his story. That sure, yeah, you may have lost a sister, but you gotta understand, I felt a way when I saw it on the news, and I feel haunted. Like, this dude had so many eyes going on in this thing that it was just like, I wanted to give them a chance. One of my favorite quotes, I truly wish, I just want it.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
He's even got a whole point where he's talking about the what if she had been able to escape? What if she'd been able to what if you asked for permission and didn't make something that other people who are literal victims didn't want you to make, you know? This is where movies become terrible for me. Forget the bad acting that is in there, the clumsy cinematography that's there, even the bad script. Think about how ignorant your movie has to be when you don't pay attention to the literal subject of your film. Then it turns out this man's making a Nicole Simpson one. I swear to God. Thank you guys for checking out this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And a shout out to those who bashed Extremely Wicked and didn't say anything about this other one, which is a true bad movie. In fact, real big shout out to the ones who gave positive reviews to Sharon Tate's movie and try talking smack about it. That makes absolutely no sense to me. Again, Extremely Wicked is just a movie. It's not the biggest story out there. It doesn't make up for the actual murders. But I think a lot of people are adding intentions where they're not really there. I think it could still be a cautionary tale. And I think that some people complain about certain things and then for a completely different movie, they're okay with it. Again, just to rent it for me. Interesting performances. I thought that they both, Lily Collins and Zac Efron, gave some of their best performances within the last couple of years. I know a lot of people don't think that they're the best actors, but I thought they did a good job. I also thought it was interesting that the Metallica guy, I'm not the biggest Metallica fan, so I apologize to those who may be angry here, but a little tidbit, he was in the movie. He was actually playing a sheriff, so that I thought was pretty interesting. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. Again, I also really wanted to talk about how bad The Haunting of Sharon Tate was. I didn't want to make a whole video because I'm just giving the movie more attention, but I figured here within this video was the perfect chance to talk about it. Yo, do not watch that movie. Do not watch. I literally, while I was recording this, realized that he has another one that he's making. Bro, I have no idea what's wrong with this dude right here. You guys know I don't complain that much about bad movies. I take bad movies and try to make something entertaining, since you guys may have felt you already wasted your 2 hours. I'm not gonna be boring with my videos, but when it comes to a movie like that, yo, yeah, that's a bad movie. That is a terrible movie. Other than that, I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. I already know you guys comment, liked, and subscribed because I always bet on it.